The most insane wedding of the century. Part 1, the forecast said clear skies. They say your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. Yeah. Well. Mine made the news. And not the cute, fluffy local bride glows in vintage lace kind of segment. No. We're talking bride punches groom's grandmother, priest slips on vomit, and cake explodes type headlines. If you think I'm exaggerating, I'd love to believe that too. But Google my name. Go ahead. I'll wait. My name is Jessica Holloway Robbins whatever, and this is the story of how I got married, humiliated, divorced, and publicly shamed, all within 24 hours. It started at 7:42 a.m., when my maid of honor, Becca, woke me up by slapping my face with a raw egg. Yes, an egg. I thought it was funny, she screamed, laughing maniacally, as yolk dripped down my cheek and into my nostril. For protein and luck. She'd gotten the idea from some TikTok who claimed brides should connect with nature before the ceremony. Becca also had green glitter smeared on her forehead in the shape of a star and was wearing my wedding veil as a cape. Red flag? Sure. But she's been like this since college, and I figured if she hadn't gotten me arrested by now, I could trust her with my big day. Mistake number 1. By 8:13 a.m., the florist called sobbing. Apparently, the delivery truck carrying our $7,200 in custom arrangements, peonies, ranunculus, some weird flower called bleeding hearts, how ironic, had caught fire on I-95. A literal fireball of floral tragedy. The driver was fine, thankfully, but the flowers? Ash. So I said, okay. It's fine. Flowers are symbolic. I still have my dress, my family, and my dignity. Spoiler, I would lose all three. By 9:45, the makeup artist fainted. Dead serious. She opened her kit, took one look at my skin, I had a stress breakout the size of a pepperoni pizza on my left cheek, mumbled oh no, and collapsed. Turns out she hadn't eaten in 36 hours because she was doing a juice cleanse. My cousin Angela tried to take over, but she confused highlighter with bronzer, and I ended up looking like a Cheeto dipped in Crisco. Then came the dress. Oh, the dress. My mother insisted I wear her wedding dress, which she had kept perfectly preserved for 37 years. When we unboxed it, it smelled like mothballs and regret. Also, it had shoulder pads so large I could have flown off into space. But I was raised on guilt and passive aggression, so I wore it. And then the zipper broke. While I was fully inside it. As in, I was stuck. We had to cut me out with kitchen shears. I stood there, in my Spanx and veil, while my future mother-in-law walked in and said, you know, there's still time to call this off. She laughed. I didn't. But still. I told myself, you'll get through this. It'll be a story to tell your kids. Irony, thou art a cruel beast. Because by 11:17 a.m., my fiancé was missing. Gone. Vanished. Along with his best man, his cell phone, and, according to a very shady text from our bartender, 2 bottles of tequila. And that? That was the normal part of the day. Perfect. Here's part 2 of the most insane wedding of the century, things are just getting warmed up. Part 2, missing groom, found chaos. At exactly 11:32 a.m., I found out where my fiancé was. The bartender texted me a selfie. It was blurry. Tilted. Slightly cursed. But there he was, Chad, my almost husband, shirt half unbuttoned, tequila bottle in one hand, mechanical bull rope in the other, mid-ride, grinning like a frat boy on spring break. The location tag? Whiskey River Saloon, 4.2 miles from the venue. I stared at the photo in silence, my Cheeto Glow makeup melting in the North Carolina heat, holding a mimosa I hadn't even asked for. Becca handed it to me and whispered, this is either a very bad omen or the start of something beautiful. Spoiler, bad omen. I tried calling him. Straight to voicemail. Tried the best man. Disconnected. I tried screaming into a decorative pillow. Very satisfying, highly recommend. By noon, the guests started arriving. We had 142 RSVPs, aunts, uncles, second cousins twice removed, some people I didn't even know, like, who are you, Sharon with the orthopedic sandals and pocket ham. Meanwhile, the string quartet was missing 2 violinists, and the only song they could play was a very solemn, very off-key version of Creep by Radiohead. Not even the cool acoustic kind, more like a budget horror movie theme. And still, no Chad. At 12:26 p.m., someone yelled, "He's here," and everyone turned toward the gravel driveway. I held my breath. It was not Chad. It was Chad's dad, who showed up wearing a tuxedo t-shirt and Crocs, holding a live goat on a leash. I repeat, a goat. Symbol of fertility, he said proudly, as the goat took a massive dump on the welcome sign. I excused myself to go cry in the portable restroom. But I couldn't, because it turned out our deluxe bridal porta-potty had been double-booked for a chainsaw carving competition happening half a mile away. So I squatted behind a hedge. Like a lady. By 1 p.m., Chad finally rolled in barefoot, sunburned, with glitter in his beard and wearing a cowboy hat that said Bride Slayer. The entire bridal party gasped. I stormed up to him. "Where the hell have you been?" He grinned. "You wouldn't believe the morning I've had. You rode a bull. And it threw me," he added proudly. "I think I might have a concussion." I stared at him. He looked so clueless. So happy. So completely unaware that I was 2 seconds away from canceling the entire wedding and opening a waffle food truck in Vermont under a fake name. But instead, I smiled. Because my therapist taught me something very important: when everything is falling apart and you're out of options, go numb. Smile politely. And let chaos have her fun. So I went through with it. At 2:03 p.m., I walked down the aisle to a butchered ukulele version of "A Thousand Years," wearing a backup dress we found in a thrift store down the road. It was bedazzled and had "Prom Queen 1998" embroidered on the hem. I was carrying a bouquet of gas station sunflowers and 2 Slim Jims tied with a pink ribbon. And then, the priest sneezed right as we were about to exchange vows, and accidentally launched his dentures into the cake. That's when I realized. This wasn't a wedding. This was a hostage situation. And I was the bride-shaped victim. Awesome. Let's keep this wild ride going. Part 3, Vows, Vomit, and a Very Angry Peacock. You ever feel like God is trolling you in real time? Because as the priest fished his dentures out of our $900 red velvet wedding cake with a salad tong someone borrowed from the buffet, I realized we'd officially crossed the event horizon. There was no going back. I was in the kind of wedding that gets its own Netflix special, or at least a BuzzFeed listicle titled 15 Weddings So Disastrous They Became Urban Legends. And yet, we pressed on. "Do you, Chadwick Hunter Jameson," the priest slurred, "dentures still halfway in, take this woman, Jessica Lee Holloway, to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Chad paused. Not dramatically. Not romantically. He just looked like he forgot where he was. His eyes shifted to the goat, now chewing on the hem of my cousin's dress. Then to his mom, who had her phone out recording vertically and sobbing loudly while live streaming on Facebook. "Yes," he finally said. "I do. I mean, yeah. Sure. Wow. Be still, my beating heart." Then it was my turn. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Because from behind me came a loud, sharp sound. Like a siren made of indigestion. Becca had vomited into her own bouquet. Everyone gasped. She gave a little wave and muttered, "Too many mimosas." Also, I ate a shrimp I found in my purse. Somehow, the priest just kept going. By the power vested in me by the state of North Carolina and the Church of Recreational Christianity, I now pronounce you husband and scree each. That wasn't Becca. That was the peacock. Yes. A peacock. Apparently the venue owner kept one as a pet, and the bird had spent most of the ceremony watching us from a nearby tree, judging us like the aristocrat it clearly believed it was. Until now. Because in the very moment Chad leaned in to kiss me, the peacock swooped down from its perch and attacked his face. Screaming. Feathers. Blood? Possibly. Definitely glitter. People were running, some were filming. Aunt Denise passed out and fell into the wedding arch. The goat got spooked and knocked over the gift table. My cake? Flattened by a groomsman who tried to karate chop the bird mid-air and instead belly flopped into it. Somewhere in the chaos, I just stood there, holding a bouquet of wilted gas station sunflowers, covered in vomit particles and cream cheese frosting. Married to a man whose face was currently being clawed by a goddamn peacock. And you know what the wildest part was? That wasn't even the worst part of the day. Because the reception made all of this look like a tea party. You're in deep now, let's keep the madness rolling. Part 4, The Reception from the Ninth Circle of Hell. The peacock was eventually subdued by Chad's Uncle Rick, a retired exterminator who lured it away using a Slim Jim and sheer masculine energy. Chad was left with a small scratch above his eye and a massive dent in his pride. You good? I asked. He smiled, one of those dopey, everything's fine while my face bleeds smiles. Totally. Let's party. And that's when I knew we'd gone full apocalypse mode. We were already married. My dignity had been eaten by a goat. I had glitter stuck to my gums and my mascara had run so far down my face I looked like a Tim Burton character. The only thing left to do was dance, drink, and pray nobody set anything else on fire. At 4:14 p.m., we entered the reception tent to the sound of a broken Bluetooth speaker blasting Yeah by Usher, Lil Jon, and Ludacris. Except only Lil Jon's part was playing, on a loop. Yeah. Okay. What? Yeah. Okay. What? Yeah. I unplugged the speaker with the precision of a bomb technician. The tent was sweltering. Why? Because the portable AC units we rented had been accidentally shipped to Montana. Instead, someone brought in $3 General Box fans, all pointed directly at the buffet. The shrimp cocktail had melted. The mac and cheese looked sentient. The coleslaw was suspiciously warm. Becca, now fully recovered from her mimosa incident and operating on God knows what mixture of Advil and pure chaos, shouted, "Shot table," and unveiled a folding table covered in tiny bottles of Fireball and off-brand Jägermeister called Jägerzilla. My grandmother crossed herself and muttered something in Polish. The DJ, a man named Spider, I did not name him, had a mullet, a Bluetooth earpiece, and zero interest in music made after 2003. He kept alternating between Cotton Eye Joe and My Heart Will Go On. During the father-daughter dance, he accidentally played the theme from Jaws. That was when my dad whispered in my ear, "Still time to fake your death and run." Too late, Dad. Too late. Then came the toasts. Chad's best man, who by this point had changed into cargo shorts and was openly vaping in front of my great-aunt, got up and said, "I've known Chad since we were 9, and I honestly never thought he'd land someone like Jessica. Not because she's out of his league, though, she is, but because, well, we all figured he'd die in a boating accident first." He paused. Anyway, one time Chad pooped in a cooler. Cheers. Becca's speech wasn't much better. She cried, wrapped part of it, badly, and ended by accidentally setting her napkin on fire with a decorative candle. Aunt Denise put it out with a pitcher of sangria. By 6:07 p.m., Chad was passed out in a lawn chair. Shirtless. Wearing sunglasses that didn't belong to him. Someone had drawn a mustache on him in eyeliner. The goat had escaped and was eating paper plates behind the porta potties. Then it hit me. Like a lightning bolt of pure clarity. I had made a terrible, catastrophic, rom-com ending level mistake. And I was about to undo it. Love your commitment, let's dive into the turning point. Part 5, The Undoing. At 6:19 p.m., I walked away from the reception. No dramatic music. No wind blowing through my hair. Just me, barefoot in a dirt field, holding the hem of my sparkly thrift store dress and dodging goat pellets. I wasn't running away. I wasn't crying, yet. I was just done. You know that feeling when your phone dies and you're kind of relieved because you don't have to deal with anything anymore? That was me, but emotionally. I wandered behind the tent, past the porta potties, past the deflated bounce house someone ordered for the kids even though there were 0 kids invited. I sat down on a cold stone bench next to a mosquito-infested birdbath and stared at my ring. It was beautiful. Vintage. Gold. Oval sapphire. Everything I'd ever dreamed of. Except it felt like I'd just stolen it from another woman's life. Some smarter, calmer, way less naive version of me who hadn't ignored all the signs over the last 8 months. I mean, this man had proposed to me in a Dave & Buster's. That alone should have been enough. Suddenly, someone sat down next to me. It was my mom. Now, I love my mom, but she's the kind of Southern woman who thinks every problem can be solved with sweet tea and a monologue. I braced myself. She didn't say anything right away. Just handed me a half-eaten eclair from the dessert table and a crumpled napkin. I think the goat ate most of the tiramisu, she said softly. We sat there in silence for a moment, chewing. The eclair was weirdly salty. Then she said, you know, when I married your father, he lost the marriage license, backed his truck into the priest's Honda, and then spilled nacho cheese on my dress before we even cut the cake. I blinked. Seriously? She nodded. We almost called it off right there in the parking lot of St. Timothy's. But then we remembered, we were idiots. And idiots deserve to learn things the hard way. Wow, I said, this is comforting? In a vaguely depressing way. She looked at me. Do you want to stay married to him, Jess? I didn't answer right away. Because deep down, I already knew the answer. I knew it at the altar. I knew it when he showed up late. I knew it when he let a peacock bite his face and still grinned like he'd won something. Chad wasn't a bad person. He just wasn't my person. And I realized, I could either spend the rest of my life collecting stories like this, the almost hilarious, if it weren't my actual life kind, or I could take back the pen and stop the script now. I think I'm done, I whispered. She nodded once. Like she already knew. We stood up. And that was when I heard glass shatter and someone yell, "Is that gasoline?" Because obviously, the reception wasn't finished imploding. Let's go, we're heading straight into the grand unraveling now. Part 6, Burnt Bridges and Flaming Centerpieces. When I got back to the tent, I saw fire. Actual fire. Someone, and by someone I mean Becca, thought it would be romantic to light the floating lanterns early. Except she misread the instructions and soaked the paper in tiki torch fluid. Now, 3 centerpieces were ablaze, a guest had singed his eyebrow, and the goat was running in circles around the dance floor like it had just seen the face of God. Aunt Denise was screaming. Spider the DJ was trying to beatbox over the chaos. A man I swear I've never seen in my life was using a ladle full of spiked lemonade to try and extinguish a flaming napkin. And Chad? Chad was still asleep in his lawn chair. I marched over to him, flames crackling in the background, heels in hand, mascara fully surrendered to the forces of gravity. I shook him awake. Jessica, he blinked up at me, clearly still drunk or concussed. Did we do the bouquet toss yet? I said nothing. Just pulled off my ring, dropped it into his solo cup full of melted ice and backwash beer, and said, "We're getting this marriage annulled." He sat up slowly. Wait, what? We made a mistake, Chad, I said calmly. And I think we both know it. He looked around. At the burning decorations. At the goat climbing onto the buffet table. At Becca, who was now singing Adele with a flaming cocktail umbrella stuck in her hair. Yeah, he sighed. This was kind of a lot. And to his credit, to his eternal credit, he didn't fight it. Didn't beg. Didn't cry. He just nodded and said, "Wanna split the cake before we tell everyone? It has dentures in it." Right. We walked back toward the chaos like we were in an indie film, but with less acoustic guitar and more screaming. We climbed onto the stage Spider had set up for his surprise acoustic Limp Bizkit tribute set, and I grabbed the mic. "Hi," I said, tapping it. "Can I have everyone's attention? I just want to say, thank you all so much for coming." Everyone turned. A few hiccuped. One guy clapped, confused. And also, I took a breath. The marriage is off. We've decided to part ways. Amicably. No hard feelings. It's just not the right time. There was a long pause. Then Grandma Edna yelled, "I knew it." And then Becca tripped and fell into the sangria fountain, knocking it over like a human Jenga piece. Honestly? Kinda poetic. Within minutes, half the guests left. Some stayed to grab dessert. Someone definitely took an entire centerpiece for their aunt. I got 3 side hugs and 1 drunk confession from Chad's cousin who said he'd always thought we had better chemistry. By 9 p.m., the venue was nearly empty. Just me, the goat, and Becca wrapped in a tablecloth like a burrito, sipping Fireball from a teacup. She looked at me and said, "So, what now?" I smiled. Now? I throw the most epic after-party divorce reception of all time. And that's exactly what I did. Let's bring this home in style. The storm's passed, but the story's not done yet. Part 7, the after-party, the articles, and the end of an era. 3 hours after calling off my wedding, I was in a karaoke dive bar off I-73, wearing cut-off sweatpants, a rhinestone tiara, and a shirt that said "Just Unmarried" in glitter glue. Becca made it for me in the parking lot using craft supplies she found in her trunk. God bless her chaotic little heart. Chad? He texted me a thumbs-up emoji and a picture of the goat in the back seat of his dad's truck. No words. Just, goat. He was heading to Florida, apparently. Said he needed to reset emotionally and also return a blender. Honestly, I wished him well. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I bought 4 rounds of margaritas for the bar. I sang "Since You've Been Gone" like it was a spiritual cleansing. A biker named Tina gave me a shoulder rub. At some point, a guy proposed to me using an onion ring. I said yes. We divorced 10 minutes later. Very clean break. By midnight, my story had already hit the internet. A video of the peacock attack went viral on TikTok, 1.6 million views in 2 hours. The caption, "This wedding literally got bombed by a bird." Someone had live-tweeted the goat rampage with hashtags like #GroomandDoom and #WedPocalypse2025. Even BuzzFeed picked it up. This woman's wedding was so chaotic, even the cake didn't survive. Goat. Fire. Peacock. Divorce within 12 hours. 10 out of 10. Would read the memoir. People were tagging me in everything. And you know what? I wasn't embarrassed. Not anymore. I was liberated. Because sometimes you have to crash and burn, on fire, being chased by a goat, with a peacock screaming overhead just to wake up. The wedding was never about me. It was about proving something, that I could make chaos work. That I could build something perfect out of mayhem. That love could survive glitter and missing tuxedos and bad gut feelings. But love, real love? It shouldn't feel like survival. So I took all of it, the ruined dress, the weird tan lines, the divorce paperwork I downloaded off LegalZoom, and I laughed hard. The next morning, I woke up in Becca's bathtub, still wearing the tiara, holding a receipt for 47 mozzarella sticks and a flyer for a goat yoga retreat. She was curled up next to me, snoring like a diesel engine. "You good?" I whispered. She grunted. "Did I try to marry the bartender?" "Yes." "Cool. Worth it." I checked my phone. Thousands of likes. 3 interview requests. 1 DM from someone at The Tonight Show. And then, a text from my dad. "You're still my girl. Proud of you. Come home for pancakes." "Reader," I cried. Ugly cried. Then I ordered a waffle and cried into that, too. Because for the first time in forever, mascara smudged, hair a mess, heart fully cracked open, I finally felt like myself again. Not Mrs. Jameson. Not the bride from the Bird video. Just Jess. You've made it this far, now it's time to wrap this wild, glitter-soaked, peacock-scarred saga with the ending it deserves. Part 8, The Wedding That Set Me Free. A week after the wedding, capital letters, because it was now an event, I was officially single, slightly sunburned, and low-key famous. People recognized me at gas stations. A guy at Starbucks handed me a free muffin because your story healed something in me. The local paper ran a headline that said, "Peacock wedding ends in fiery divorce, goat still at large." Which was mostly accurate. The goat had been spotted 2 counties over. Some said he was running a small cult of alpacas. I chose to believe it. I moved back into my old apartment, the one with the creaky pipes, bad Wi-Fi, and the weird smell coming from apartment 3B. It felt like coming home from a war I'd accidentally started by RSVPing yes. The internet kept buzzing. Someone wrote fan fiction about me and the DJ, why? Becca started a YouTube channel called Bridesmaids Anonymous and had 3,000 subscribers by the second day. Chad? He sent me a Polaroid of himself on a beach with the caption, "No more weddings, only healing." He looked happy. Or drunk. Same difference. And me? I started writing. At first just a few notes, then paragraphs, then full pages. Not just about the wedding, about everything. The lies I told myself to keep things on track. The moments I laughed when I wanted to scream. The difference between loving the idea of love and loving someone who makes you feel seen when you're a mess. I wrote like my life depended on it. Because in a weird way, it did. A month later, I published my first piece online. How I got married, divorced, and chased by a peacock in under 24 hours. It exploded. Messages flooded in. From brides, grooms, exes, cousins, wedding planners, strangers who got dumped on Valentine's Day, and one woman who said she fled her reception to join a punk band. Turns out, I wasn't alone in my chaos. Turns out, everyone has a flaming centerpiece story. It became a book deal. Then a podcast. Then an invite to speak at a Women in Recovery from Romantic Dumpster Fires retreat in Sedona. I wore a crown made of sage and almost got bitten by a raccoon. It was beautiful. But the real win? Peace. Not perfection. Not a happy ending with violin music and ring redose. Just a quiet, slow-burning kind of peace. The kind where you look at your old wedding dress, now duct-taped shut in a closet, and instead of sobbing, you snort, laugh and say, "Yeah, that happened." And if you're wondering about love, I'm not chasing it anymore. But I've got a good feeling. There's this guy at my local bookstore who makes terrible coffee and even worse puns. He asked me out last week after accidentally dropping a full box of romance novels on my foot. I said yes. No fireworks. No fancy plans. Just tacos and a shared playlist. No peacocks this time. Probably. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more incredible content.